Hi, I'm Mayor Jay Tiptree, and welcome to this edition of Chandler Inside and Out. Today, I think you're going to be very interested in our program because we're going to talk about the Google driverless car that you may be seeing in Chandler here in the not-too-distant future. We're very fortunate to have in studio today from Google, Jennifer Haroon, who is head of business operations for the self-driving division of Google. So,
That's right.
Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Mayor.
You came in from San Francisco.
That's right.
We're taping, it's 110. You left the airport at 65 degrees.
About 65, quite a difference.
Yeah, bring some of that cool air here. So what I want the audience to learn about a little before we get into the actual program that'll be taking place in Chandler, and which we're really excited about, but a little bit about your background, what brought you to Google and then to be in charge of that self-driving car program.
Sure. Well, you know, I started my career actually in investment banking, which is very different, and moved to strategy consulting, but joined Google in 2008. Really interested in this idea of using technology for businesses, but also for some aspect of social good. And so I really feel like I've been lucky at Google. I've worked on a number of projects where I've been able to match both of those together.
Right.
And self-driving cars is a great example. Right? It's a very innovative technology that's still in development, but that we really believe will have a huge positive impact on society, whether it's around road safety or accessibility and mobility for folks who can't drive today.
Yeah, very good. So investment banker to driverless cars.
Yeah.
Did you have any other stops within Google before you got to the driverless car?
Yeah, I feel really lucky at Google that they've really supported this idea of, you know, innovative technology, maybe even innovative business model, and an aspect of social good while building a business.
Right.
So before I joined the self-driving car team, I actually wrote the business model for and helped launch what we call Project Link.
Okay.
And that's a metro wholesale fiber optic network that we launched first in Kampala, Uganda, in Eastern Africa, and that has since expanded to Accra, Ghana, in Western Africa. And there, you know, fiber optics is not a new technology, but there the innovation was really around the business model. This idea of a wholesale or shared network, which helped make internet access a little bit more affordable in places where the affordability makes a big difference.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So fiber optics, because you've had a couple of things that you've done that are kind of global in nature as you talk about them.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, there are so many things that you can use in terms of Google's technologies that are really applicable worldwide. And so I've been able to try a lot of different ideas, and not all of them have worked out. One idea was using Google Translate, which is a great tool. I use it for myself when I travel to help crowdsource health information in local languages. Okay. So, for example, if you are in East Africa a few years ago and you did a Google search for the Swahili, which is the predominant language in Kenya, for example, for malaria, which is very common in Eastern Africa, you wouldn't find any search results. But if you searched in English for malaria, you would find, for instance, a Wikipedia entry. And so we did a project a few years ago called Health Speaks, where we asked local doctors and nurses and healthcare providers to help translate Wikipedia articles that were health-related into Swahili, so that now if you search for the Swahili word malaria in Eastern Africa, you get the Swahili answer.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's really interesting and serving humanity in
exactly.
a lot of different ways. I want to talk a little bit about Google, then we'll roll into the driverless car stuff that's going to happen. But I mean, when a lot of people think of Google, they think, oh, I'm going to go search through Google. But Google is this global, mega-sized company that just does a whole bunch of different things.
It really does.
Why don't you share I mean, you've talked fiber optics, you've talked about the medical, some other things that maybe people are or aren't aware of Google that they do, because they are such a huge company with a lot of umbrellas.
Yeah, I think, you know, on the core internet side, you know, Google Inc. does things that you're probably more familiar with, like the Google search, Gmail, which is our email client, even Calendar, which a lot of people use, things like Google Translate. And of course, there's the mobile operating system, Android. So some people use Android based phones.
Yeah.
And that's all within Google. We are under this umbrella called Alphabet. And under Alphabet, there's a number of other companies like Nest, which is basically a connected thermostat for your house. They also have cameras, Nest cameras, like security cameras. So there really is a wide variety. I sit in an organization called X, which is what we call our moonshot factory. So moonshots mean this large problem, such as road safety, where we think there's a technological innovation that can address it and that results in this, radical solution. So self-driving cars is one of those moonshots that we're working on.
And they encourage moonshots and innovation. I watched that movie with Vince Vaughn, which was kind of a spoof movie, but it also showed that the youthfulness of the company, and also that they really do encourage innovation and want innovation. And what you're talking about with the moonshot kind of tells me that the sky's the limit with Google.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think there's a real belief that innovation comes from a lot of places. So as I mentioned, I've been able to work on a variety of projects, and quite frankly, some of them have done better than others. But the fact that Google really supports trying new things, so trying to use Google Translate to help increase local language, health search results, has been really important. And from it, we learned things.
Right.
And so the same thing goes for our moonshots, is really going for solving these big problems.
Yeah. And if you don't try, you can't ever accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So that brings me to talking about what's going on in Chandler with Google now. And you guys had approached the city a number of months ago and chatted with us, and you had said, hey, we're going to pick a valley city to be the next test site for our driverless car.
That's
there was already 3 cities. And you were interviewing some of us with the cities in the valley. You ended up picking Chandler, which was really exciting because we thought it fit really good with our innovation and technology kind of hub designation that we've acquired over the past many years. But so you picked Chandler. We're really excited about it. I want to talk a little bit about the program now. But before I do, maybe the other 3 cities that are also doing it. I know one's Austin. You got Mountain View, Washington.
Mountain View, California, and Kirkland, Washington. Yeah, that's right.
So we're joining pretty good company there.
I think so.
So what went into the decision for you guys, number one, to come into the Valley to pick Chandler, but to pick the East Valley to be the start of the Arizona program?
Sure. Well, we've been working on self-driving cars since 2009, and we've been testing them primarily in our home neighborhood of Mountain View, California. And there are a number of things we wanted to achieve when we expanded our testing program, both on the technology side, but also on the community and sort of interacting with the public side. So we look for places that can meet both of those needs. So on the technology side, we thought that the desert-like conditions here, for example, would be something new that our cars have yet to experience and that they need to learn. So how does the heat, how does the car handle the heat? How about all the dust in the air that's a little bit different from, for example, Mountain View, California? And I think there are probably road infrastructure things that we will learn that we don't even know about yet. So for example, in Austin, Texas, before we drove there, we didn't realize that they have a number of horizontal traffic signals, whereas in California, we have all vertical ones. Not a hard technology problem, but obviously one important to learn. And so I suspect that we'll see some of those here as well. The second side of it is interacting with the public and learning from the community. So in Mountain View, since we've been there for 7 years, quite frankly, our neighbors sometimes are sort of like, there's another Google self-driving car, right? It's such a part of their daily lives for so many years that it's not something as noticeable. Whereas when we enter a new community like Chandler, we want to hear from your constituents. What is it like the first time you're out jogging and you see a self-driving car drive in your neighborhood? What is it like to drive near one? How about as a bicyclist? So I think that combination of both the new technology learning and also learning from the community, both were important and helped us pick Chandler. And then, as you said, it always helps to be in a neighborhood that's welcoming to technology and innovation and has an interest in it, because that's one way that we get more feedback.
Yeah, and I've had more people stop me on the street, or even when I'm working out at the club. Even this weekend, somebody was asking me about it, and I said, it's coming. But it perked people's their interest. He says, is it going to be safe? I go, there'll be somebody in the car. It'll be safe, which we're going to talk about. But the desert afforded you the extreme heat conditions that we are experienced right now.
Yes.
And those occasional giant dust storms, and just giving you some different parameters to conduct your pilot program.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so that part is...
We haven't experienced one of the giant dust storms yet, but I'm sure we will. Everyone talks about them.
You will not forget it once you get the first... We've been lucky so far this summer. Let me knock on wood here, but we had a couple small ones, but yeah, we don't really look forward to those big ones, but they'll come, and they're pretty dirty. So as you work on the technology, what's really the end game for where do you want to go with this as you work the technology and you get to a place that, where would that be?
Yeah. So what we're working on is what we call fully self-driving cars. So vehicles that can take you from point A to point B at the push of a button with no human intervention needed. And that's what we really think will enable the improvement in people's daily lives. And that improvement really is along a number of different factors. So we mentioned safety. Safety was really the driving force in originally starting the project. Here in the US, we have 33,000 road deaths on average every year. And actually last year that went up slightly to 35,000. And we really think there's room to continue to improve there. I mean, over the years, we've made a lot of improvements. But it turns out that 94% of all crashes, not just those that end in death, are due to human error.
Yeah.
And we think that's really the space where driving technology, self-driving technology, can make a difference. Another big goal is around mobility. I've mentioned a few times, and I think I've mentioned to you, this gentleman named Steve Mahan, who's a longtime friend of our program. He lives in the Bay Area in California near my offices, and he's visually impaired. And a few years ago, he was one of the first people who drove or sat in the driver's seat of one of our early self-driving cars, of course, with one of our engineers in the car as well. And it was a fascinating and really telling experience for our engineers, because we had assumed that the first time someone would sit in a self-driving car, something so different, and someone who's visually impaired and cannot drive himself, he would want to go do something really cool and different and adventurous. Instead, he wanted to drive through a fast food drive-through and go pick up his dry cleaning. And it really brought home the message that there are all these people out there who don't enjoy the same freedom and independence that you and I do when we can just jump in a car and run our errands and jump in a car and see family and friends. And so we really think that mobility aspect is an important goal as well.
Yeah, good. I'm going to reintroduce the show real quick, and we'll be right back to get down into some of the specifics of what's going on in Chandler right now.
Good.
I'm Mayor Jay Tipsherney. You're watching Chandler Inside and Out. Today we're talking with Google, and have Jennifer Haroon in studio with us to talk about the Google driverless car program. Again, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor.
So right now what's taking place, before you get to the driving and the testing, you got to do mapping. And I assume that's what's happening now. Maybe share with our audience what that's all about. And I think you have some of your SUVs in town now doing that, so they may have seen some of the Google SUVs driving around, and you're mapping.
That's right.
And what is mapping?
The first step in self-driving is building this map, and it is using the same white Lexus hybrid SUVs that we also self-drive in, and all those vehicles have Google self-driving car written on them, so certainly if the residents here see them, they'll recognize them as our vehicles.
So it's a map, and it also be the test vehicle too.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so in building a map, it really helps simplify the task of driving for the self-driving car. And these maps are special. They're different from, for instance, Google Maps, which some people may use, or the maps on your car's navigation system. They're very detailed. They include things like the location of curbs and how high curbs are, or the height of traffic signals. They include the lane markings, because all of those details are needed when you're driving. So that is the first step in self-driving.
That's very detailed information.
It's
They're not
very
just doing a
detailed.
casual mapping. They're
That's
doing
right.
very detailed. So they'll do the mapping, and that'll take so long. I don't know how many months that. And then at some point, they'll the car will be out there on the streets. Obviously, I know people say, you got a car out there with no driver. I go, there's a person in the car, obviously. But maybe talk about the technology that's in place that actually helps the car drive on its own, and then maybe talk a little bit about, okay, we're going to have that car out there, but there's a person in there for safety reasons. Because it is a pilot program.
Yes. So if mapping is the first step in helping a car become a self-driving vehicle, the other first step is also putting these sensors on the vehicle. So all of our vehicles have a number of sensors on them, things like lasers and radars and cameras, as well as a computer on board each vehicle. So then with the sensors and the map, as the car is out there in the world, it then can identify where it is.
Okay.
So same thing as when we drive. You want to know where it is you are in the world. It's more sensitive than just the GPS that perhaps your car navigation system uses. And again, that's because of the sensors we have on it, plus the map.
Right.
So the car knows where it is down to the lane it's in on that road, for example. Then it also does what you and I would do. It wants to know what else is around it. And again, that's where the sensors come into play. The sensors give the vehicle a 360-degree view, which is more than I have at least when I drive. And it identifies all these other objects on the road. So other vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists. And from there, it then has a model for what all these other objects on the road are going to do and make some predictions about what they're going to be doing. And it's doing this constantly, lots of times every second, because driving is so dynamic.
Right.
And it has these models partly from the experience we've built in driving our self-driving cars. So we've driven our fleet over 2 million miles, and 1.7 million miles of those have been self-driven. And so in seeing and predicting what all these other objects on the road are going to do, it then can determine what it itself is going to do. So that's how it then self-drives.
And there is somebody, like you say, you've had all these millions of miles that those cars have been out there. There is a person in the car, obviously, too, for monitoring purposes, among other things.
In fact, it could be that members of the community won't even notice that the car is self-driving, because we have a trained test driver in each of our vehicles at this time. And our trained test drivers are at the ready in case something does happen that they do decide to take over. So the vehicles you have on the roads right now could be mapping, but they also could be self-driving.
So how's the safety record with Google in particular?
Yeah, in that 1.7 million miles that we've driven, we're really proud of our safety record. I mean, given how important we think it is. We drive over 15,000 miles a week across our fleet, which is more than the average American drives in a year.
Right.
So given all that driving, you can imagine we see a lot on the road, and that includes the minor fender benders that we have gotten into. And in the minor fender benders we've gotten into, all but one has been the responsibility of the other vehicle. So we see a lot of things like sitting at a red light, stopped, and the vehicle behind us also stopped, but then a few seconds later, sort of rolling into us and tapping us. And I think it's interesting that we're seeing a lot of those fender benders that go unreported. And so interestingly, we could be learning more about drivers on the road and driving than you otherwise would in normal situations.
And that's good to hear. Your safety record is really, really good. I know there was an incident recently I was reading about with Tesla, because people are following your lead, and other companies or technology-oriented companies are also doing driverless cars or a variation thereof. But Tesla had some incident recently, so they're also in the process of doing the same kind of testing, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, what happened recently with Tesla is obviously really sad. I mean, anytime anyone dies on the road, it's not good. You know, the National Highway Traffic and Safety Authority, as well as NTSB, is investigating what happened, so we don't know all the details. We are working on a technology that, like I said, is fully self-driving, where it doesn't require any human intervention. So it is different from the assisted driving technologies that are in existence today on some of the cars on the road. We really believe that that fully self-driving is where you'll get the full safety benefits, and also where people won't have to necessarily pay attention, right? They can use that time they're commuting for something else.
Yeah, and I found it interesting too, as you talk about this technology and where you all are heading with it. You're already seeing, like I'll watch a car commercial on TV, and they're talking about the car that will automatically brake if there's, you know, an impending accident getting ready to happen. So we're already seeing some of the parts of that technology that's been, I assume, perfected, put into cars that are now being marketed and being sold on the market right now. Mainly the braking, like from the front, so that you don't rear end collisions or something happens in front of you, and those cars are automatically equipped to brake.
Yeah, given, you know, the experience we've had that getting rear-ended is not uncommon, seeing some of these assisted driving technologies is really great. I mean, it's great to see the car manufacturers take some of them on. Again, our approach is a little bit different from the car manufacturers because we don't sell cars, right? And so we are working on the technology so that it really does that full responsibility of driving.
And hopefully we'll be showing some B-roll with this program, because you showed me some different circumstances with the driverless car and some things which were interesting. But are the cars heading to be where you're trying to get them act more human? Like, for example, I think you showed me an example where it got to a stop sign and then maybe it inched out a little at the stop sign, so before it was going to take a right-hand turn or something.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine that given all the driving we've done, the active driving on large roads, busy roads, neighborhood roads, we've done a lot of that. And so one of the things we're working on now is making the cars a little bit more human-like, because it is interacting with others on the road. And so that inching out is a great example. The technology itself, for example, if the car was sitting at an intersection and wanted to make a right turn on red, given our 360-degree view out to about 2 football fields, the car is able to see that cross traffic coming from the left without moving. But we've heard from people that it makes them perhaps a little nervous sitting behind the car and it's not moving, even though you could make a right turn on red. And so in teaching it to inch forward a little, just like you and I would do, it's indicating some intention to the others on the road.
Yeah, good stuff. I know we're going to have some opportunities for the public to learn more about this, especially in Chandler. And I think we've got already set up a time in August where people can come out, and it'll be, sounds like maybe an open house type forum where you'll probably have a car there. But I believe we're planning to do that on Saturday, August 13th.
That's right. Saturday, August 13th at Soho 63, right here in downtown Chandler. We'll have an open house. We'll have one of our Lexus vehicles there for people to get close to, have members of the team so that you can ask questions. We're going to hold some information sessions, so for those who want to learn more, they can attend the information sessions. And it really is an open house. It's open for folks of all ages. When we've held them before, kids have really loved coming to see the cars and talk about the possibilities of self-driving vehicles. So we hope to see lots of people at the event.
Do we have the start time of that yet? And if not, I'll get it up on the screen.
Yeah, we can get that for you.
Okay, good. Yeah, that'll be good, because I've had, like I said, a lot of citizens say, hey, when can we learn a little bit more about it? Because there's a lot of curiosity there.
And they can always visit our website.
Okay,
google.com/self-driving car. And also our URL is on the back of all of our vehicles. So if Chandler residents are driving around and see our car, they can see that our URL is on the back and they can send us a note. We actually really ask people to give us feedback, whether it's positive or negative interaction. We want to hear about it because that's one of the ways we'll improve.
Good. Well, we'll hope that they'll give you some good feedback that can be replowed back into the program.
I'm sure they will.
So you got the 4 cities going now. Chandler joins those other 3. What's the long-range plan both for the pilot programs? Are you going to expand them into other cities, or what do you see there?
We certainly hope in this area and sort of the greater Metro Phoenix area to eventually be able to expand. And I think the other important part and the reason why our interactions with the community are so important is we do get a lot of questions about having members of the public in our vehicles, and we would like to get to that point in time. Yeah.
Be like a tour almost. Yeah, that's good. Well, we're real excited about it. Any other comments maybe that you want to share with our audience before we
I think the biggest thing is, don't be shy about contacting us, going to our website and contacting us. We really do want to hear from people. We want to be a part of the community, and being a part of the community is interactions like the open house that we're going to hold in August, but also hearing from the members.
And when they go to that website, do they see on the self-driving car, do they see stuff specific to each test location, like the Texas or the California? Or
in our feedback form, you can put in your location, so either your zip code or you can even say Chandler, and that helps. Yeah. Okay,
good. Well, we're excited about it. We think it's going to be an interesting couple of years, hopefully, working on this.
We are very excited too, and it's been, you and everyone else we've met have been so welcoming, which is a big part of why we're excited to be here.
Well, thanks for being here today and sharing with our citizens a little more information about the Google self-driving car program.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
I'm Mayor Jay Tipsherney. You've been watching Chandler Inside and Out. Hoped you enjoyed the show. Until we see you again, take care and be safe.